burn with the rest of them.
Boss, get out of there!
What goes around comes around.
How's it going, guys? Well, it's finally here. Sorry this review has been a bit delayed. I wanted to finish the game and play everything that I could before recording this, but here it is finally. Here's my review of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain is the 8th Metal Gear game in the series, not including Ground Zeroes of course, and is the final installment to be written, produced and directed by Hideo Kojima. But would it live up to the hype? Would this game prove to be the masterpiece that Kojima always wanted? Would the power of next-gen hardware finally give us the first truly open-world stealth game that we've been waiting for? Well, I'm here today to answer those questions for you, so let's begin. The Phantom Pain is set in 1984, 9 years after the events of Ground Zeroes. The game begins in a hospital where Big Boss awakens from a coma. Injured, weak and confused, he is forced to flee the hospital with the help of a mysterious patient. It's here at the beginning that we get a taste of things to come and the insane imagination of Kojima. The rest of the game is a race against time to rebuild the Diamond Dogs and expand your mother base, previously destroyed at the end of Ground Zeroes. Adopting the name Venom Snake, Boss makes it his mission to stop the nefarious plans of Cypher and the sinister-looking Skullface, which brings me neatly to one of the best parts of the game, rebuilding and customizing mother base. As you play through the game, using the ingenious, albeit scientifically impossible, Fulton system, Snake can extract soldiers, animals, weapons, vehicles, minerals and plants, all of which can be used to level up and expand mother base. Everything that you do in the open world truly has a purpose. Recruit soldiers to your R&D team to develop some truly epic weapons and gadgets, or develop your intel team to give you useful intel on enemy routes and positions to use on missions. Fulton a tank or anti-aircraft gun to protect your base or use in the field, or yoink resources and plants to help build and develop your base. You truly feel like the commander of your very own private army. You can even customize your base's color and logo and build your very own zoo. It's very cool and definitely one of the most engrossing elements of the game. You can easily spend hours exploring your base, punching your soldiers to build morale, and crafting that perfect non-lethal sniper gun that you have been drooling over on your iDroid for days. Apart from recruiting soldiers to your cause, Kojima has also introduced a new buddy system. As you play through the main story, Snake recruits the aid of buddies that can be taken out into the field with you. These buddies include a horse, a mech, an epic wolf dog, and the skimpily clad Master Sniper Quiet. While in the field, Snake can give orders to each buddy. Each have their own unique abilities and lend themselves to different styles of gameplay nicely. I found D-Horse extremely useful when free roaming the vast open world, and he could be useful when getting out of a sticky situation. I honestly didn't use the D-Walker much, as for me it felt very out of place in what should essentially be a stealth game. But hey, that's just me. If you like to speed into an area and blow shit up, then D-Walker will be right up your street. My two favourite companions though were definitely D-Dog and Quiet. I will say that while useful, the new buddy system is extremely broken, especially in the case of D-Dog and Quiet. D-Dog, for example, using his wolfy senses, will tag enemies and items of interest, making it very easy to plan your next move. Upgrading his gear also provides extra options including both lethal and non-lethal takedowns and the ability to remote Fulton enemy soldiers. Equally, Quiet can be used to scout an area and then take out all soldiers in that area. Using them is just too easy and far too tempting. For me, it took the challenge out of the game, especially when you can be cheap and just hide somewhere, repeatedly order Quiet to shoot, killing everyone or putting everyone to sleep so that you can run in, cap the objective and leg it out of there. It's even possible to achieve S ranks on some missions doing this. While an interesting premise, the buddies were just too much of a crutch to lean on. Now let's tackle the elephant in the room, Quiet. I know that many people have been critical of Kojima's portrayal of Quiet and the flimsy excuse given for the need for her to wear a bikini and expose so much skin. But honestly, as a female gamer, I didn't find her remotely offensive. In fact, I found the whole thing kind of hilarious, and honestly think that instead of downplaying his choices and implying that we should feel guilty for focusing on it so much, I would rather that Kojima owned it. So what if Quiet is over-sexualized and Kojima wants to fill every adolescent boy's fantasies and look at titties for hours? That's totally fine. Just admit to it. If you strip away all the ridiculous over-sexualized moves, Quiet is actually an intriguing character, especially if you get to play her personal missions, which reveal a lot about her motivations. Plus, she has some kick-ass moments in the game that show her off in all her awesome badassness. And of course, let's not forget that without Quiet, we wouldn't have epic fan-created moments like this one. The best part of Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain has to be the gameplay. For any reviewer or gamer, this is of course the most important element in any game, and the gameplay here is exceptional. If reviewed on the gameplay alone, this game would easily achieve a 10 out of 10. Kojima has excelled himself here. The gameplay is smooth and engaging. While of course primarily a stealth game, there are so many choices available here to keep the gameplay fun, varied and challenging. Snake has a plethora of weapons, gadgets and vehicles at his disposal. His movement is smooth and quick. The ability to dive onto the ground, crawl and run allows Snake to respond quickly to situations. There is so much choice here that you are not restricted to playing missions only through stealth. This makes the game a lot more accessible for those that have little experience with stealth games or Metal Gear Solid games in general. The reflex mode really helps with maintaining stealth if spotted, but if things go wrong, this doesn't mean instant game over. Switch to an assault rifle or grenade launcher and have some fun. The choices available to you really allows gamers to use their imagination and ingenuity when playing. Each mission can be played and replayed in a multitude of ways. As a result, missions remain challenging and never get old. Next, let's talk about the open world that Kojima promised us. Has he delivered on this? The answer is both yes and no. There is no doubt that this is the biggest Metal Gear game that has ever been created. There are two main maps, Afghanistan and Africa, which are absolutely huge, vast and dynamic. Chock full of activities, side missions and points of interest. There is a lot to do here. There are 157 side ops in total, dotted throughout the map. Although I found them way too repetitive and soon became bored of them. I honestly had to force myself to grind the side ops as I wanted money to build my base and buy cool weapons. You can navigate the worlds on foot, on horseback or by helicopter to drop zones. Gone are the linear corridor settings. Afghanistan in particular looks impressive. The game is visually stunning, although there is way too much lens flare for my liking. Still, the real-time night and day cycle and dynamic weather conditions really add an interesting dynamic to the game and can either hinder or help the gamer. Take too long on a mission and that pesky sun will rise, shining brightly in your location and exposing your position. The use of the e-cigar did help with this problem, though again it felt cheap for me and I rarely used it. Some of the best moments though were when sandstorms would sweep in spontaneously, providing some much needed cover and allowing my Snake to sneak out of some very sticky situations. I don't know if it's just me or if I've been spoiled by recently playing what I consider to be the benchmark for all open world games, The Witcher 3, But I was actually disappointed with the open world settings in Metal Gear Solid 5. I would have liked more than just the 2 maps and more varied landscapes and weather environments. I also didn't find Afghanistan that easy to navigate, nor open world. Kojima boasted at Snake's new ability to climb rock faces, and while he can, these are limited and only at key interactable locations. More often than not, I found myself having to run along a road as I was unable to climb over a hill to gain access to an area. In this way, I felt very frustrated, and it felt like I was back in those linear corridors again. When looking at the atmosphere created by Kojima, it is also important to talk about the sound effects and music, as these play a big part in immersing us in the world. So did the sound effects succeed in drawing us in? Sadly, I would have to say no. The sound effects were, in my opinion, mediocre, and on some occasions even downright awful. The sound effects used for running and climbing were just too noisy and unnatural. I found this incredibly jarring when I was supposed to be as stealthy and as quiet as possible. Equally, the musical timing was off on numerous occasions, building unexpectedly when the situation didn't really seem as epic as the musical score would have us believe. As such, rather than finding these moments dramatic or moving, as was intended, I instead found them amusing and very cheesy. Finally, it's impossible to critique any Metal Gear Solid game without talking about the main story. Split into 2 chapters, the Phantom Pain's main story is a good length, spanning 50 missions and roughly 40 hours. The voice acting is top quality, and Kiefer Sutherland did a good job and does add a certain age and weight to the role. However, I found his portrayal of Snake far too stoic for my liking. Surprisingly, I found the main story of Phantom Pain to be one of the weakest of all the Metal Gear games. There are a number of reasons for this. Firstly, I found Skullface to be a weak opponent for Snake. Let's just say that the culmination of his storyline is disappointing, and the final confrontation between Snake and Skullface long-winded, awkward, and actually kind of boring. Secondly, a lack of challenging and enjoyable boss fights really hurts the game. Gone are the epic boss fights that the Metal Gear Solid series is famous for. There are only 2 boss fights to speak of, and these are over far too quickly. Thirdly, I think a lack of cutscenes really hinders the story. Of course, many people have complained about the length of cutscenes in previous games, and Kojima has tried to address these issues by replacing cutscenes with audio cassettes that are designed to fill in the gaps in information between missions. But there were just far too many of these tapes for my liking. I actually found myself missing the 40+ minute cutscenes. Because of this and the episodic nature of the missions, I found the story both disjointed and confusing. Chapter 1 is definitely the stronger of the 2 arcs, and Chapter 2 did have a lot of potential with some dramatic moments, but there were far too many lazy and repetitive missions. Sadly, Chapter 2 felt rushed and unclear. While it has been confirmed that Kojima had planned a 3rd chapter in which he would resolve the more interesting storyline of Eli, begun in Chapter 1, sadly this was never realised as Konami viciously pulled this from the game, perhaps to make the release date in time or sell later as payable DLC, who knows. There are far too many questions at the end of Metal Gear Solid 5 that are just not resolved, and sadly we may never know what Kojima intended for the series unless someone can rescue the franchise from the clutches of Konami. So was Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain the crowning achievement that Kojima was hoping for? Well, it's hard to say. Overall, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain is a great game. The gameplay and customization available make this game a highly enjoyable experience and provide some of the best action roleplay gameplay that we have seen this year. In terms of the gameplay, it is by far the best Metal Gear game that Kojima has produced. However, it is sorely lacking in a number of crucial ways, especially when it comes to the main story. And with this in mind, I give Metal Gear Solid 5 a fair 8.5 out of 10. So there you go, there are my thoughts on Kojima's final installment. So let me know what you guys thought of the game in the comments section below and what score you would have given Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain out of 10. I'll be back of course later with more reviews and video game news, so stay tuned for more. Please subscribe if you would like to see more, and please hit the like button as always if you did enjoy this review. Alright guys and girls, well take care, and as always, happy gaming!